Good night, everyone. If the people on Reddit aren't lying, we should be live with the new expansion launched just a few minutes ago. So let's take a look and see if they are right. I haven't logged in since yesterday, so perhaps we'll even get some new cards from the Ogre Magi staff. I just couldn't... Oh, well, it seems we are live. I couldn't bear more mid-range shaman on the ladder, basically. So, hey, there's a new card. That was kind of on purpose, I guess. I didn't mind. I had 2 empty quest slots, so I thought I might as well just not log in yesterday. And I heard about this trick, and it seems to work. So that's a nice one to remember for future expansions. In each case, the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan expansion is now available. Good night, everyone. My name is Rooster, and we're on the wrong side of town.
We're Hot Joe, K-Pins and a grimy goose. Are you busy? We got a job for you. You know busy? This job would be, mutually beneficial. Join or we smash you!
Okay, well, I like that. Let's join the goons anytime soon. Doesn't really mesh with the rest of my quests, but that is okay. I guess we can reroll the shaman quest and see. It stacks nicely with the other one, but let's see. Alright, that can work. We can play some paladin later, but not today because we have some boosters to buy. Yeah, we'll do Town Brawl at some point in the nearby future also. I was thinking we buy a couple boosters, right? How's this work again? I do recall somewhere... there we go. And meanwhile, we might just talk a little bit about the new cards. How about that? Because I haven't really done a review. I don't think that's really that necessary, especially for the big content expansions. Could we please? Did that work? I hope it worked, because I lost my gold. Oh, yes, it did. That is remarkably smooth. I was expecting to wait a few minutes there. So let's get going. Oh, did I get my lucky card back? I think I did, yeah. Alright, so what do we got? Shadow Rager. Well, that's an infamous one. That's a really crappy one, alright. Enough has been said about this. Cabal Lackey might be a decent constructed card. I don't know, it's a little... It doesn't draw you to secret. That would be a bit much, I guess, but it's probably better than Gyarator Mage, I guess, so kind of playable. Murloc Shaman not making any waves, I'm afraid, so not too terribly excited about that one. Worgen Greaser, well, it's a 6-3. It's a thing, I guess. Greater Healing Potion. That's a lot of healing for 4 mana. Best rate you're gonna get, and I guess Forbidden Healing was a thing in Paladin. I'm not sure how it will do in Priest, but could be okay. So there was a bug on the North American service that we've been spared of, or I guess perhaps not spared, but instead deprived of. That involved the tri-class cards being way too common in these boosters, so people were having like insane amount of the tri-class commons, and they will be compensated for that. So anyone who has bought any boosters before the hotfix was rolled out, which was 2.5 hours ago, I think, will be compensated 1 booster for every 3 they bought. So that's kind of nice. Wasn't expecting that, but Alleycat. Let's talk about Alleycat. That is a pretty good 1-drop for hunters. It's 2 beasts for only 1 mana. Pretty sweet. I'm expecting this guy to see some play. Are those his teeth? What is he holding? Perhaps it's a bracelet or something. Ancient of Blossoms. Nothing to see here. Has a big butt. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Cabal Courier. Well, here's one of the class cards, and it changes color. That's actually pretty sweet. Discover a Mage, Priest, or Warlock card. Not a bad rate. I would probably run one of these in the respective classes' Reno decks. It's kind of nice. Epic card. Sleep with the Fishes. This is not a bad card. This is not a bad card at all. I might try this out in maybe... Well, Reno Warrior didn't really get some new stuff, but perhaps it's good enough in Control Warrior even. Alright. Let's see what we got over here. We have Cabal Song Stealer, best silence in the game. That's not amounting to much, but it is a pretty good card, I'd say. And if Ancient Watcher Priest ever becomes a thing, then I guess this will be a card in that deck. It's pretty sweet following up an Ancient Eerie statue with this one on turn 5. That is actually pretty sweet. 4 mana 7/7s are supposed to be pretty good. Toxic Sewer Ooze, well, it's an ooze. I don't think it's better than Acidic Swamp Ooze, but it's a thing. It exists. Cookie Chemist, swap the attack and health of a minion. Yeah, if you really want something bigger than a Crazed Alchemist. I mean, if the Crazed Alchemist effect is really what you're looking for, but you just want something bigger, then I guess this is not unreasonable. I mean, it kills Doomsayers. I'm actually not as down on this card as some other people are. Cabal Crystal Runner? It's too bad that Mage Secrets are actually kind of bad. But it could be a thing. I'm expecting... Oh, I'm not seeing this card in any constructed decks that are worth much, unless Blizzard releases another good Mage Secret. And the Mage Secret in this set is just not... It's not cutting it. Let's see what we got. Jade Lightning. Hey, that's the first Jade Golem card. Jade Golem's in Shaman. In Constructed, it's not very exciting, I think. Jade Golems are more a Druid or a Rogue thing in Constructed, I think. Potion of Madness, pretty sweet card. Probably would be fine even if it costs 2. I'm not sure how good it is in Constructed. It's gonna be pretty sweet if you're stealing Nim King Boss for a turn, I guess. I'm not sure whether... I guess Reno Priest would run this, right? Reno Priest would. Not sure about Control Priest. It might work with Pyromancer. There's certainly potential. Bluegill Sniper, it's a Murloc. It's not a bad Murloc. I guess it can replace some kind of really bad Murloc in my all Murloc deck I run for Murloc quests. That's about it. Jeez, going there with the legendaries. Grook Fu Master, it has Wind Fury. It's very, very unexciting. Stolen Goods give a random taunt minion in your hand. +3/+3. Yeah. It might be better than it looks. If Taunt Warrior is any decent, but... We'll have to see whether Taunt Warrior is an actual thing. Just gotta congratulate that guy on opening 2 legendaries in like 5 minutes. Let's get going, shall we? I hope I'm not talking too loud for my lower neighbors, by the way, but this will have to do. We've got another Kabalaki. We've talked about that one. Streetwise Investigator. Well, it works against Stealth Auctioneers. I'm not sure this is really the tech you're looking for, but some... Geez. Golden Legendary even. Oh my. So yeah, for some classes, that might have trouble with a stealth auctioneer, I just can't see this being any good. The stats are just too bad if your opponent doesn't have a stealth minion. That's the problem. And you can't afford to run bad cards in your deck, like Eater of Secrets or something. This is certainly better than Eater of Secrets, but it's just not cutting it. Shaky Zip Gunner. It's a little slow, but the stats are okay, and if you can manage to land this on something important, like one of the Hunter cards that actually cares about their power, that's gonna be pretty good, right? This has some potential. It's not a beast, unfortunately. That is number 4. There's exactly one friend online, and he's just opening legendary after legendary. It's crazy. All right, backroom bouncer. It's unexciting, but it's there. Let's hope we're half as lucky, right? We're only a few packs in, and he's opened 35, so I guess we can't complain too much. Jade Chieftain, if Jade Shaman is an actual thing, I don't think there's enough cards there to really make Jade Shaman work, unfortunately. This will never really be bigger than like a 5/5, and I suppose that will be a decent rate, but you really have to build your deck around it. I don't see this happening. Alley Cat, which talks about that one. I'm pretty sure we've, well, of course we haven't talked about all of the comments, what am I saying? But we'll get there eventually. Freezing Potion, 0 mana freeze an enemy. I don't think so. Perhaps in really aggressive, it could be in aggro freeze mage, I guess, because this is an Iceland. It makes your Icelands deal 4 damage to face if you don't have a Frostbolt. And it might just buy you enough time to burn your opponent out. It's basically a Frost Nova for 0 mana if your opponent only has 1 minion out, right? It works with Flame Waker. I'm not sure that deck runs Flame Waker still. Might be okay, but you really have to have the synergy for that to be good. I don't see it. And we've talked about you. Right. What do we got? Got some rares here. Backstreet Leper. Yeah, that's not a good card. Freezing Potion again. Naga Corsair. That has some. It has a relevant ability, and it doesn't have terrible stats. Might be okay-ish in Rogue, mostly in budget decks though. This is not really. It doesn't give. If it gave durability, this card would be pretty good. But without the durability, I don't think the attack is going to be worth it. Perhaps Aggro Warrior, but it doesn't have charge. It doesn't deal immediate damage except for the 1 extra attack for your weapon. I'm not seeing it. Now this is a sweet card. This is a really sweet card, and it's gonna be good in Dragon Priest. It has to be good. And Bomb Squad, that's an exciting counter to Sylvanas. But maybe just a little too cute. Alright, what else we got? Another epic, hey. Oh, we're going a little quick, but that's okay. Give your minions +1/+1. If you want to go all out on the Violet Teacher plan as a druid, I guess this is okay. You're not casting Power of the Wild for the 3/2 beast that often, but it could be a thing. All minions in your hand. Oh, this is a parallel. Probably too cute and constructed. Although I'm seeing the Murlocs on this bike here, and I'm thinking, would it be a thing in Murlocs? Probably not. Has a good rate if you have a big hand, though. Let's not discount it too quickly. Friendly bartender, you really have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for this to be good, and perhaps Reno Lock? It could be a thing. Maybe this is better than Earthen Ring Farseer. If it heals you for 2, then it's done its job, and it costs 1 less mana. I guess it's okay. But Earthen Ring can actually heal a minion, and this will never. I don't know. Manic Soulcaster. Oh, that could be an exciting card in Reno Mage for when you really want to go all out, shuffling Manic Soulcasters at infinitum in your deck. But perhaps not in Reno Mage because you'd have to include 2, of course. Some kind of Fatigue Mage it could work, or well, perhaps Reno Mage could use a second Reno, for example. It's not horrible. Perhaps just a little too cute. Ooh, another epic. Let's take a look. Jade Chieftain, we've seen that one. Jade Behemoth. Also not too exciting, but if a druid wants to go all out on the Jade Golems, then this is certainly going to be part of that deck. And I guess if you're going all out on the Golems, well, if you're not going all out on the Jade Golems, then you might as well not run any. Except maybe the one druid card where you get infinite Jade Golems for just 1 card, but we'll talk about that later, I guess. Would be okay, but you really have to go all out. I don't think the Spell Druid deck wants this. I don't think so. We've got Sea Devil's Stinger. It's just not going to be good enough, I think. You'd have to run a Zoo-ish Warlock deck with a lot of Murlocs, and it's not going to be as good as Zoo. So why bother? That's the main problem with Zoo Murlocs. It's a nice card. This is just trying a bit too hard, I'm afraid. It's basically only good value if you're going face with it, because with 1 spell power, it's going to deal 12 damage, and that's a pretty good rate for 7 mana. But yeah, of course, you do need to have the spell power for it. And if your opponent has, well, if your opponent has any minions on the field, then you can't really rely on the missiles killing it. But you can't rely on the missiles hitting face either. I don't see this. I don't see this working now, unfortunately. What do we got? Ooh, another epic. We're going ham with the epics here. I'm liking that. So we've got Grimscale Chum. Well, that's a good card in the Paladin Murloc deck, and a really trashy card in any of the other Paladin decks. Traditional Murloc Paladin, though, will not be interested in this, of course. But that's a combo deck, and not really an aggressive Murloc deck. As long as Murloc Knight is a thing, this is going to be pretty sweet, right? If you manage to buff your Murloc Knight with this, then it's suddenly a 4/5 for 4. And it doesn't really cost you too much playing a 2/1 for 1. So that deck might be worth checking out, at least. Lotus Agents, discover a Druid, Rogue, or Shaman card. Well, the hopeful thing here would be to try and get some Jade Idols, but that might be a little optimistic again, because the chance of actually getting one seems a little low to me. Otherwise, 5 mana, 5/3, draw a card. Most of the time I would prefer an Azure Drake, I think. Mean Street Marshal, again an aggressive Paladin card. And if you can rely on this thing having 2 or more attack, and I guess you won't even play it if it didn't have 2 attack, then it's actually pretty decent. I mean, if cheap aggressive minions cycle themselves, then they're suddenly actually pretty good. Quickly, please. Yes, that'd be nice. They're teasing me with the orange glow all the time, but that's not a thing that's happening anytime soon, I think. Alright, Jade Swarmer. A Jade Golem card for the Rogue, and the Rogue has some decent early game Jade Golem cards, so that makes me optimistic about the chances of Jade Golems actually being a thing in Rogue. That's definitely the first class I would like to try that out in. And Jade Swarmer is certainly a part of that deck. It's not even horrible if it happens to get killed by AoE, because it summons a golem, and that's what it's there for, and the best it would do otherwise is just deal 1 damage to something. Rogues are pretty good at dealing 1 damage, but they can always use the extra chip damage from a 1 power stealth creature. So I'm liking this card, yeah. Alley Cat again? It's really cute, that's what I can say about it. Grime Street Outfitter. Certainly a part of the deck that the previous card, the Paladin Epic, is a part of. Because just playing this one the turn after is going to, well, not the turn after, but I guess you play this on turn 2 and then you play the other card on turn 3 and then Hero Power, or play another one of these. Oh, that would be sweet. Play this on turn 2 and then play it again on turn 3 and then play a 3/4 for 1. That seems pretty sweet. Although you did just play 2 1/1s for... Well, I guess a 1/1 and a 2/2 for 4, but that's not terribly exciting, I guess. Backstreet Leper again, and we've got Pint-Sized Potion. It's a combo card in Constructed. You're not going to run this in Dragon Priest, for example, I think. But if you can combine some advantageous trades, perhaps along with a removal spell, this is going to be pretty sweet. As well as combining it with Shadowward Horror, but that might just be stretching it, I think. That's a little too cute, because horror is just not that good by itself. Come on, legendary time. I can feel it. We've talked about most of these cards. Blessed Crystal Potion. Yeah, it can be a Arena Lock card at the very least. I mean, you can always decide whether a minion is worth destroying a mana crystal for. And if you cast this on when you have 10 mana, then it basically costs nothing. You just have a cheap assassinate. So, if a 4 mana 7/7 is worth giving up a mana crystal for the next 5 turns, it might be worth it. You're just losing 1 each turn, just a little bit of tempo if you're doing things right. Smuggler's Run, we've talked about that one. And Dispatch Kodo. Yes, that is the sole reason, well, that and the Hunter Epic, I guess, that the new Hunter Secret, or the one that buffs a beast in your hand, that those cards might actually be playable. Because if you can give this +2/+2 while it's in your hand, then that is a pretty sick card all of a sudden. But of course you did invest in another card to have the privilege, so not really sure whether that's going to be worth it, but that would have to be pretty sweet, I will admit. By itself, it's also actually quite serviceable. It's basically Keeper of the Grove before the nerfs. Oh, I didn't check. Shame on me. This is the only good one within the series of Hog Riders. Might be decent enough. I mean, if your opponent has a taunt minion, well, you're only playing this in an aggressive deck, and this can either help clear the taunt minion, or the rest of your minions can clear the taunt, and then this can go face. So, I'm semi-hopeful about this one. It has potential. Gadgetzan Socialite, just too small. I mean, a 3/3 for 3 at least has the potential to kill a 2/3. I don't think 2/3s are too common in the current meta though. So perhaps this is actually fine. Except that the heal. If the heal were 3, this card could be okay. As it is, I just think it's too small to be meaningful. No offense, Miss Gnome. I guess I'm being sizist here. Jade Blossom, Yeah, that's a card that goes into the Jade Golem Druid deck and not in any other decks, and I have my doubts whether that deck is going to be good enough, but I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, because that seems like a pretty sweet deck to play. Jade Shuriken, Rogue could be good, though. I'm having high hopes for Jade Golem Rogue. Especially with that card, because Jade Shuriken is pretty sweet. Basically starting from the point where you're getting better than a 1-1 for it. Potion of Photomorph, pretty crappy, because you never know what you're gonna sheep, and that's not worth paying 1 less mana for. That sentence made no sense, but you catch my drift, right? We've seen these before, and it's 1-2. Alright. And more kooky chemists. At least we're not in A, because we would have approximately 5 playsets of tri-class commons by now. Cabal Talon Priest is a pretty nice card. I'm not sure, would you run this in Dragon Priest? I guess you might. It's probably better than Blackwing Ignition. It loses 1 health, but gives something else 3 health in return and doesn't require a dragon in your hand. Yeah, this is definitely better than Blackwing Ignition. In Dragon Priest, even. So it's probably worth running. Other priest decks? Probably not. Oh, I should talk about Jade Spirit. It goes in Jade Golem decks. Volcanic Potion. It's a Consecrate for Mage, but it combines really poorly with Sorcerer's Apprentice. I'm not sure about this card. Reno Mage would run it. I'm saying this about a lot of Priest, Warlock, and Mage cards. But yeah, I would run this in Reno Mage. It's pretty nice, as long as you're not on the Tempo Mage plan with 3/2 spell power minions and 3/2 Sorcerer's Apprentices. Then this all of a sudden becomes a lot less exciting. Fight Promoter. If you run this in a deck with hand buffs, perhaps a Paladin deck, could be a finisher in the aggressive Paladin deck. That's too cute. No. And too heavy. But if you can give this +2/+2, it will draw 2 cards when it comes into play, just by itself. So that's probably the deck you would run this in. I think it's a bit much to count on the fact that you have a minion with 6 or more health in play, especially since a minion with, for example, 10 health might not even count if it has already sustained 5 damage. So for example, an Agent of War might not even trigger it if your opponent knows what you're up to and just sends a few damage its way, even though it can't kill it. Not too hopeful unless you run it in a hand buff deck, and I guess maybe Warrior, actually. Maybe you would run this in a hand buff Warrior deck, but mostly Paladin, because Paladin buffs everything in hand, and it's a lot more reliable than relying on random buffs, which the Hunter and the Warrior do. Alright, we've got Mistress of Mixtures. It's a 1-mana 2/2. And everyone can play it. It's not a beast, but this is no zombie chow. It could be better in some situations, but it could also be significantly worse, and that largely depends on the amount of 2/3s in the meta, I think. It's pretty bad against Feral Spirits, but it's pretty acceptable against Sorcerer's Apprentice, for example. So, I don't know. It could be good in Priest, too, if you manage to... Well, I was thinking just dealing 4 damage to your opponent, but you would also deal 4 damage to yourself, of course. Pre-no-lock might default to this, but again, that does depend on the amount of 2/3s. If the meta has a lot of 3/2s and not 2/3s, then this is going to be pretty sweet, and otherwise pretty marginal. So we'll have to see, I think. Cryomancer is a pretty sweet follow-up to Water Elemental, but that's pretty much it. This is not worth running 0 mana freeze a target for, and relying on Frost Nova, well, that's not going to work unless you Frost Nova in the same turn, so not too hopeful. And the Frostwaker is just a little too cute, I think. Casting a spell and then letting your Frostwaker... That's not its name, but I can't really recall right now. Anyway, more Jade Spirits, more Jade Blossoms, and another pint-sized potion. It's getting late, I'm sorry. Alright, we've looked at this card before, and I'm going to say that a lot, I think. Oh, this is not the remove stealth one. This is actually worse than a questing adventurer. Mostly. Probably every single time. In a deck that's looking for an effect like this. Hey, it's Shadow Rager again. And Shrug Beast Rager. You're not losing a lot for playing this card. Its stats are okay, and that's kind of a theme with the Hunter hand buff thing. So I'm not sure how good the Kodo, how viable a deck around the Kodo and the what's it again? The 3 mana 2/2 that dies into 1/1s equal to its power. If that deck turns out to be something, then Shrug Beast Rager is definitely in it. Grimy Gadgeteer. Warrior hand buffs. You basically have to be okay with any single minion in your hand getting a buff if you're playing a warrior hand buff deck. And the disadvantage here is also that you can't really play this and the minion you're buffing in the same round. So it's much worse late game. I guess that means you'd have to be aggressive. So this would only work in an aggressive warrior deck, or perhaps a taunt warrior deck, I guess, where you can afford to hold back cards and protect this with a taunt. It needs protection because it dies to a 3/2, and that's horrible. Even if you do get one buff out of it, then it's probably not worth it. So you need to protect this. It's not good. I don't see this working. Hey, there's another one. Hired Gun. Yeah, it's pretty decent. Stats are definitely okay, but for constructed, not good enough. And hey, another pint-sized potion. Let's see, we should have had most of the comments by now, I think. We've talked about this, right? Ooh, a double mana worm for only 4 more mana. I've actually heard speculation that this might be okay in Rogue, just because it really has a big behind. Might not get removed instantly. Might be a little optimistic though. If you manage to drop this and then make sure it survives, you would have to conceal it, I guess, and that's a little awful. You might just run Mana Addict if that's your plan. This does gain permanent attack, so you can re-stealth it the turn after. I don't think this beats out Questing Adventurer if you're going the stealth plan, really. And hey, I know that card. Alright, big time Racketeer. Well, I guess if you can play this with Bran on the field, it's going to be pretty decent. Discover a Taunt Minion. Taunt Minions on average, especially Warrior Taunt Minions, are pretty good, so this card might work. I would play it in Reno Warrior. That was a joke, by the way. That was a joke. Taunt Warrior is better than it looks, I think. Whether it's good enough remains yet to be seen, but we'll definitely see. And hey, another Beast Rager. So that Hunter deck is definitely happening. Well, I guess I need 2 more epics for that, but I've got some dust. Of course, I would always advise to wait a little bit before recklessly spending dust on new cards, because that's a great way to be disappointed. Hello. Someone wants me to play Eerie Statue Priest, I guess. And Grand Street Protector, that's a big dude, and that's a big buff. 2 Divine Shields and a Taunt for the price of only a 7 mana 6/6. If only you had a way to guarantee the board on turn 7. I don't know about that. But the idea? I like the idea of that card. It's pretty impressive. Oh, hey, hello. There's a card. Alright, Grimskill Chum, we've talked about that one. Volcanic Potion, well, that's the second copy of that one, and that's not an awful one. You would have to be aggressive, of course, but it's... I don't know what deck to play it in, but it's certainly a lot better than Jeeves, I think. And Jeeves was fringe playable, so this might work. It doesn't have to survive the attack, it doesn't have to attack face or have to attack a minion. You just have to be aggressive and your opponent should not be. That's the main thing, but well, it's certainly worth a try, I think. Right, another epic. And a golden reporter. Well, that's going into the dust bin. Well, not the literal dust bin, of course, but you know what I mean, right? Greater Healing Potion again. And a golden epic. I don't mind the 400 dust. Yes, thank you. That's not for... That is 400, right? Yeah. Alright, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Public Defender. Well, if Taunt Warrior is a thing, then it remains to be seen if this guy is good enough, but if you can manage to get a hand buff on this thing, or perhaps even a bolster, then the stats are pretty impressive for only 2 mana, so making this a 2/9 is pretty sick. But you really have to make it a 2/9, because even a 1/8 is not going to cut it. I don't know. Oh, hello. Did I not notice that one? Well, hey, it's a Piranha Launcher. I'm not sure what Hunter deck this would go in. Perhaps it's better than it looks, but I am not seeing it. Hunters are often sitting on their Eaglehorn bows for quite some time. So they would have to then replace it for a Piranha Launcher? I don't know. If you're running secrets, I don't see you running Piranha Launcher in your Hunter deck. So maybe Secretless Hunter with... No, I can't see it. The idea I like. The usability of the weapon, I mean, practically... How do you even use this lens here? Anyway, Blood Fury Potion. This card is pretty bad. If you can give +3/+3 to a demon, if your deck is basically only demons, then it might be okay-ish. It's a slightly smaller Blessing of Kings for 1 less mana. But you really have to go all out on demons, because just the 3 attack is really, really bad for only 3 mana. I won't rule it out. Okay, so I guess it's not bad in that case, but let's forget I said anything. It's probably too bad to run. Let's keep it at that. Cabal Chemist, random potions. With the card dump, a lot of potions, such as Freezing Potion, for instance. It's nice to see the 2 together. The average potion is not as useful as we thought, so I would probably give this a pass even in a Reno whatever deck. It's just too unreliable. You could get the Blood Fury, Blood Fire, whatever potion that we saw in the previous booster, No, no thanks. Lotus Agents, hey, we've seen that one. And Fellfire Potion, now this is a sweet card. I'm liking this one. Probably Reno Lock again, but Reno Lock is already a thing. Perhaps Handlock won't be interested in this, I think. They have enough board players as it is with Shadow Flame, with Hellfire. Perhaps run one Hellfire, one Shadow Flame, one Fellfire Potion. That could work. But then you might as well run Reno Lock, right? I don't know. It's pretty darn good, that's for sure. Cryomancer, we've seen that one before. Sea Devil Stinger, hello. Oh, hello, Mean Streets Smuggler. Probably not good enough in Constructed, I think. But running a 3-mana 2/4, 3-mana 2/4s are, well, I guess they kill 3/2s while surviving, so they can't be all that terrible, but the buff is just a little too marginal unless you get it on something really important. Maybe the Hunter deck, but it's not a beast, so it doesn't get buffed. Maybe that's an upside, that it doesn't get buffed instead of the more important minions. But I'm skeptical. I just don't see it. Let's see, Friendly Bartender. Sweet Trickster. This is actually very survivable. It survives a lot of board players. It does not, however, survive a lot of minions on your opponent's side of the field. So perhaps something like Freeze Mage, or perhaps even some Shaman decks would be interested in this, because getting a spell power minion that survives a lot of incidents is very worthwhile, and Shaman really wants its spell power right now. And perhaps Freeze Mage would run this. I mean, they were running the Kobold, but I guess that one gave 2 spell power, right? I don't know about that, but won't rule this out. Card is most terrible in the arena, by the way. I'm looking forward to playing some arena, by the way. Maybe even more so than playing Constructed right now. Anyway, almost there. And I think we've seen most of the commons. I might make a video talking about the cards that I don't have yet at some point in the near future, but don't count on it over the weekend at least. Jade Idol. I was hoping I could talk about this card for a little bit, because this card has been hyped to incredible heights, and I'm not really seeing it. If Jade Golem Druid is a thing, it would likely run this card. But if that is not a thing, I don't see this being run as a one-off in a deck that runs no other Jade Golems, and that is what people were hoping to see. Because if you can shuffle 3 copies of this in your deck, then I suppose you can make 2 golems and then shuffle three other copies over the course of 3 turns, which is really slow, but does mean that you'll never fatigue, I guess. That is a thing. Druids are not a class that's well suited to going to extreme fatigue lengths, though. But I suppose if you can combine this with an Auctioneer, then it's going to end up pretty sweet. So maybe after all, a deck with Auctioneer and a lot of Jade Golem Druid cards might be a thing. I don't know. That's worth trying out, though. Let's see. Ooh, second legendary. I was secretly hoping for that, but didn't count on it because only 2 boosters left. Let's see, Smuggler's Crate. Yeah, might be a thing in the deck with the Kodos. Whether the deck with the Kodos is a thing, again, remains to be seen. Second Idol, that's nice. And Cruelly Unshackled. Well, it goes into Demon Warlock, and I'm not sure whether Demon Warlock is a thing. And I'm not even sure it's that good in Demon Warlock, but it's a fancy card. I like the art. Is it worth trying? Well, if you have a lot of demons with downsides, I guess that can work. Perhaps a demon handlock? That used to be a thing, maybe in Wild. If you can drop a Mal'Ganis with this, it's pretty sweet. We'll see about that. And last booster for now. Gotta save some gold for Arena, because I am rather looking forward to that. Let's see. Nothing too exciting. Well, this goes into the same demon deck again. And this might actually make it a thing, because this is a powerful effect on a minion that's actually reasonably statted, in contrast to something like Raid Leader, for instance. This is a very powerful effect. I'm not sure. I'm liking the thought of Demon Lock. But perhaps it just hasn't got enough cards. This is also a pretty powerful card, by the way. A very, very decent heal and a decently statted minion combined into one. This is a very good heal bot for Shaman. So Control Shaman definitely also got some tools this expansion. Which also, that is certainly a deck to keep an eye on, I think. Alright, let's take a quick look at the cards from the new set, shall we? Just to get an idea of what we have. And what we are still missing. I can talk about the commons first. How about we organize by rarity? Got all of the commons so far, missing a Warlock one. That's to be expected with 30 boosters, I think, excuse me. I'll have to do the complete tally, but within a booster or 20, I expect to have most of the commons as 2-offs. Missed Abyssal Enforcer. That is definitely a card that goes into both the Demon Lock. Actually, the Demon Lock might not be all that interested. Well, if you can drop it without triggering its battle cry, I suppose it's really good, right? In a deck like that, definitely goes into Reno Lock. That is not a joke. It is going to be pretty sweet, I think. Got all the warrior cards, got most of the neutrals, as we can see. Ooh, this changing of the banner is it's kind of triggering. We've got Hosen Healer, which is surprisingly not terrible, and it's really good with Auchenai Soul Priest. Basically just killing any minion instantly, unless it has Divine Shield or something of the sort. Seems pretty okay. Mostly a priest card. I can't imagine running this in maybe some kind of giant deck, or a little optimistic. And we've got Daenerys Hawk Chopper. Oh, that's the Hog Rider, of course. An aggressive deck against another aggressive deck. If you're an aggressive deck, you don't count on your opponent having no cards in hand. That's kind of the problem. And if your opponent is not aggressive, it won't have any. You won't have an empty hand. If your opponent is aggressive, you really don't need a minion with charge. I guess it could be okay-ish, but it doesn't have taunt, so no. I don't see the niche for this card. So that's for most of the commons, and I guess we'll chat about the remainder of the cards later. So we've got a couple rares, still plenty of rares missing, so there's still enough boosters left to be had. All right, that is going to be it for now. So thank you very much for watching and listening to me ramble about some new cards. I thought this was a more interesting format than the usual well, both more interesting than the usual pack opening and more interesting than the usual card review. So I hope you enjoyed. As usual, if you have any questions or suggestions or whatever you would like to see me play in Standard, for example, what deck are you excited about? Let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.